Hi, everybody. My name is Frank Lieberman, and on my left is...
Tony Brickle.
Good. We are the co-host to a program that's called It Has Nothing to Do with Age or Gender. I'm borrowing the name of our program from my recent book, It Has Nothing to Do with Age. Back in 1997, it was the beginning of the year, I'm not sure which month it was, but I met my friend and running partner, Tony. And Tony was doing the ride and tie, and I entered the limited distance endurance ride, and this was the Mustang Classic on Mount Hamilton in San Jose. As a result of this event and going through a divorce at that particular time, I began to get healthy and started to compete again. Therefore, the theme of our program has to do with people that you would meet at a Starbucks or Tony at Baskin and Robbins. However, these people are fierce competitors and are mentally tough. Tony fits that completely.
Sometimes.
Well,
Not always.
all I know is that today, well, actually, the most recent example, and I can give example after example, was Sunday. We had this run on Sunday. It was roughly a half marathon, and as the heat began to climb, the trail and running conditions became more difficult. Tony, the previous day, had weed eated.
That's right, yeah, I weed eat it all day long.
All day long at the pond.
The pond.
So Tony said he was tired. So after maybe 3 hours or so, Tony's out ahead, but he's walking. All it took was for me to catch up to Tony and pass him. And tired Tony did what?
Well, I'm not going to let you beat me.
He's not going to let me get in front of him very long, unless he decides it's okay. So he got in front of me, and then of course he slowed down later on, and then I caught up to him again, and I said, "Come on, Tony," and I passed him because I knew that's all I had to say, and you would.
I got going again.
Got going again. So that's the most recent example of Tony and mentally tough, even though you were tired and said that you were tired at the beginning of a run.
Yeah.
But
I always say I'm tired at the beginning of a run.
Typically, Tony, yeah, typically you'll do that. So whenever Tony says he's tired, I chuckle and generally can predict what's going to happen during the run. So that was the example.
Yeah.
So Tony is mentally tough. I didn't know that back in 1997. Do you remember back you were teaming up with?
Oh, Jeff Windenhausen. More than likely when you saw us, we were laying in a lounge chair drinking a beer.
You were. you were.
And this guy comes up and just starts talking to us about well, you want to know what we were doing. I think you basically asked, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got you in, I think Jeff got you in contact with the president at the time of Ride and Tie Association.
Well, two people came over, Robert Eichstadt, and the president at the time was Kurt
Riffle.
Kurt Riffle. So was that Jeff's doing? Did Jeff
Yeah, I believe Jeff got you in touch? Kurt, he went to Kurt and got in touch.
Well, I heard about Ride and Tie, and I thought there's only elite people. And then I looked.
You met us.
And then I met you and Jeff, and you had a full beard.
Mm-hmm.
You looked more trim.
Probably darker.
It was darker, and Jeff had a full beard too. So I'm thinking, geez, these two old guys doing this ride and tie. Maybe I could do it. So I was really interested in ride and tie at that point.
And that's what you did. I mean, the next event you were there. I mean, pretty quickly.
If you remember, the next event was the Quicksilver Ride and Tie, and that was put on by Kurt. And Skip.
And they got you a good partner.
They got me a good partner called the Dipsy Legend, as it turned out, Russ Kernan. And to bring back memories, on the 8th of May, was it the 8th of May? Or no, the 15th, the 15th,
yeah.
It was the 5th, no, it was the 8th of May, last month, there was a run at Quicksilver.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember?
Correct, yeah, we did it.
We did the
25K.
We did the 25K, and a group of us were ride and tie people.
Well, me and you were.
Jonathan Jordan.
Jonathan, that's right, Jonathan, his wife.
And Tara Jordan.
Tara, yeah.
Right? So, also after the event, where did we go driving? Where did we wind up
We
going?
went to, I can't remember his name now.
Skip.
Lightfoot's ranch, where he used to hold the ride and tie at.
That was where we camped
Right.
overnight. Yeah. So we went looking for Skip.
Skip, who wasn't there.
No,
he wasn't there.
So this is back. So we revisited 1997 in some respect. Okay. Well, today's program is to feature Mike Keller, but Mike is on his way somewhere on Highway 80. He left from the Bay Area, and there's been traffic congestion after traffic congestion. So hopefully he'll make it before our program's
over.
Program.
You won't have to listen to us talk to each other for an hour. Well, since we're on the ride now, why don't you tell them about the story about how much running you did on your first ride and tie?
Practically none. As it turned out, Russ Kernan is this tall, lanky runner who started running years earlier. He did the Beta Breakers, the Dipsy and double Dipsy, and I didn't really know him or about these events at the time. I was really a neophyte when it came.
Well, yeah, when it came.
Right, I didn't know it, and so I get there, and Russ is dressed like a runner, and he looks like a runner. He looks like Tony, who's tall and relatively thin, but Russ is a little thinner than.
He's gone.
He's gone. A little thinner than you. And so at the start of Quicksilver, there's this big hill called Cardiac because it's a tough
hill.
We know that. We know that. So Russ said to me, I'll run up the hill. I do hills well. Okay, then I'll ride my horse.
You didn't argue with him.
I didn't know. I said, okay. I didn't know what Cardiac, how difficult it was. I said, but okay, I'll ride my horse. And so Robert Eichstadt agreed to do a hand tie. So I remember at the start, the Yippee, Yahoo, and Skip makes all this noise at the start, and everybody takes off. For those that don't know ride and tie, maybe you'll just give a little brief.
It's a competition with 2 runners and a horse. One person rides the horse, one person starts on the ground. Hopefully, the guy on the horse is faster than the guy on the ground, and he rides out a certain distance. It's usually no more than a mile, sometimes longer, but usually it's no more than a mile. Ties the horse, jumps off, starts running. The other runner catches up, gets on the horse, takes off, catches his partner. They can either trade at that point, or he can pass them and tie again, and then keep going. You just leapfrog that way for 30-some miles.
Right, right. So, okay, so Robert was there for the hand tie. So I get off, and Robert says, "Go ahead, start running." Okay, and then pretty soon, I got tired. I hadn't been running that long, but it's still uphill. And then Russ catches up to me, and he says, "I'll ride a little further." So rode a little further. He rode a little further, and then he got off. Then I got on the horse, and I remember my first real tie without anybody there was at a hitching post. You know where the hitching post is. So Steve Shaw was in that area, and so I tied my horse, and I said to Steve, "Does that tie look okay?" Well, I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
It turned out the tie was okay, and so I started running, and then Russ catches up, and Russ says, "I'll take the horse into the vet check." Remember where that vet check is? So I took the horse into the vet check. We passed the vet check, and because Russ took the horse into the vet check, he didn't wait at the vet check. He started running.
Well, he's supposed to.
He's supposed to.
Yeah.
So I took the horse through the vet check. I was riding.
You never saw Russ again.
I never saw Russ again. So I get to the finish line, and Russ is at the finish line waiting.
What took you, Frank? Yeah.
I was riding. Russ is running. So we became the first pro-am. I'm the amateur.
Okay, right.
We came in first as pro-am and came in the top 10. And I remember at the picnic area and thinking, God, this is not too bad. This is actually pretty easy.
Until the next one.
Oh, then the next one happened to be the World Championship, and that was up in Highway 1.
Oh, Jackson.
No, Highway 1 going towards north.
On the coast.
On the coast, Highway 1.
Think of the name of the Big Creek.
No, further on, towards.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Anyway, my partner then is Paul Robinson, and Paul said to me, "You are not going to get away with what you did at Quicksilver. You're going to have to run." And so I remember running, hand tying, running, hand tying. We didn't come in the top 10 at that time. We came in somewhere
else.
Somewhere further down.
What drove you more, just the love of the competition or the winning?
Well, it was the love. It was both, but it was winning the little battles, not just. I mean, winning the little battles of being able to get to a spot quicker than somebody else. You know, it wasn't anything that you would measure as a necessarily a victory on the basketball or football court, or football field. But it was just the little competitions that are happening, you know, almost every second, you know, during a game, and it's wanting to be fast and then working to be fast, and then once you get into the position of being in college and in the pros, you actually have people that are training you to be bigger and faster and stronger. But you don't think of that when you're a child. It just happens.
Did it happen for you that way?
Well, I love the competition. You always bug me about, you think I want to win all the time or beat somebody, but I just love the competition. The competition means more to me than the win.
But that's part of
Yeah,
competition,
well,
though.
sure.
Unless you want to differentiate between winning and
But I
competition.
enjoy the competition much more than the win. I know you don't believe that.
Well, they kind of go hand in hand.
They do.
But
there's
I've been on
small
losing teams
difference.
before too, and so if you continue to like the game, I agree with you. Then it's the competition. Yeah, nobody likes to lose, but if you continue to play, even though you hate or you don't care about winning or losing,
Right.
then it is the competition.
You remember being on a losing team? You have to go back.
I do. I
many-
remember
many
it.
years.
I
How many
remember
years do you have to go
it
back
was
for
my
that?
sophomore year in high school, and it was one of the worst years in the history of the high school that I went to. And it was, but being as a sophomore, it was a lot worse for the juniors and seniors because they were derided, and I mean it was a 1-9-1 season, and it was it was very difficult. Now, I was a sophomore, and I was one of 3 sophomores that came up, and I started every game. So, part of my victory or part of my, I was just happy to be up as the youngest, one of the youngest guys in the team and starting. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my victory, and leadership was not part of my makeup yet as a sophomore. It rarely is. You're only 14 and you're playing, with the 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds, But then we got better, and so we had a winning season the next season, and then we won the city championship my senior year. So, we got better, but we weren't. It was a great high school football history and tradition at the school I went to, and that's why, as a sophomore, we were on the worst team that they ever had.
So is that the only football losing season, that one season, in your entire career?
After that, I never lost again. Really, we lost Rose Bowls, which were kind of debilitating, and we lost playoff games with the Cowboys. But from then on, I was always with.
Look at that level.
I was with.
You're talking about going from sophomore. Right.
Terrible loser.
To losing a Rose Bowl or losing a playoff professional football.
That's true. And it was then it was at a different level, and then winning. I mean, from then on, I'm trying to think. In college, we only lost 3 games in the years that I played there. Including my freshman year, we played 2 games, but we played against Toledo and Bowling Green, I think. So it was kind of like the Lions and the Christians, but then getting into the Big Ten season, of course, Ohio State was the national champion, the year before my sophomore year. So it was we were playing against at that time the big boys, and we only lost 3 games in 3 years, and then with the Cowboys, we had a terrific season. I can't remember. First season, the 3 seasons I was there, we were in the playoffs every year. So, and I joined a team that had won the Super Bowl the year before I got there. So you could say that the team I was with was, the best in football.
Not bad.
No, well, not bad getting picked by the best. That always helps.
That's a dual-edged sword. You can say absolutely. I mean, if you're going to be picked, get picked by a winner.
Well, the pressure's a lot higher.
The pressure's a little bit higher, and you're joining a team that had won the Super Bowl the year before. So obviously, there are not a lot of weaknesses.
No.
For a lot of rookies to come on and make a mark. But I was fortunate. I think they were in a transition, and I was able to make it. And of course, then we only had 40-man rosters rather than the 53 that the NFL has today. So there were far fewer jobs available. So, I'm proud and happy that I was able to make the Cowboys. I didn't have as much fun because I didn't play as much as I did in college. And playing is really where the excitement and the fun is. And I don't consider running down and being a part of the bomb squad as being you're on the field, but you've got a lot of names for them: the bomb squad, the hamburger squad, the leftovers.
The kickoff.
That's a kickoff team.
Kickoff, punt teams.
Punt team, okay.
Well, but still, how many people back then are we talking about that have an opportunity to be on the bomb squad in the entire league? How many people?
Well, certainly nobody in my family growing up, and nobody in my high school team. We had a few of us. My senior class that drafted, we had a lot of guys. And we had a very special group of players at Michigan. We had 2 or 3 first rounders. We had 2 or 3 second rounders, and same way with third rounders. I was a third rounder. So, we had 15 guys from my senior class at Michigan that went on to play in the NFL. So
it's a lot.
That's why I always told Bo Schembechler, you were the lucky one.
You made him.
You walked into it. Yeah, we made you, Bo.
We made them.
Well, I think it was two-way street. He took a lot of pretty good athletic people and molded them into a great team.
So would it be embarrassing by saying, so Mike was one of 40 players, college players selected to play against the Dallas Cowboys in the college all-star game back then?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't remember the college all-star game, but they played it from the mid-'30s until 1975. And it was the best college players played the champion of the National Football League. Okay. And of course, when it started, the National Football League was new. College football had been around and was the most popular sport in America, supposedly. And so it was really a coup for the National Football League to be able to go against the best collegians, because those were the most popular players, not the pros.
How'd that game turn out?
Well, in the early going, they were pretty close, and then of course the National Football League just got to the point where it was not much of a contest. But our game, we lost 20-7. We were competitive. It was 14-7 into the fourth quarter, so it was not like they thrashed us. But I talked to the players. In fact, one especially, George Andre, who had actually played at my high school, one of the few players in my high school besides myself that went on to play in pro ball. But I had breakfast with him a couple of days after the game, and I said, George, what did you guys think coming in? How hard did you have to prepare? And he says, Mike, we didn't have to prepare much. which was a little bit. It took a little bit of slowly was squeezing the air out of my balloon.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit? So we got a little clue to your mental toughness. It started young, really your competitiveness. But say a little bit about your competitive toughness, because that's a little bit different than mental.
Well, mental toughness in my way of thinking is in different areas. There's the injury, the toughness that it takes to overcome and play with injury, and we always the football adage is that you can play hurt, but you never play injured. Okay, in other words, you can be hurting, you can be sore, you can actually have some torn ligaments and tendons and even fractured bones. But if it isn't going to kill you, then you play with it. Or
that's not an injury.
Yeah,
that's not an injury. That's you're just hurting a little bit.
You're just
hurting. Just tape and aspirin to it was the other one. No, we had guys who would play with casts, and they take the casts off and put a softer cast on and send them out into the game. But the players all wanted to do it, and that's the real toughness. And I'd mentioned a couple of players I played with, Jack Youngblood, who played for Florida and then for the LA Rams, and Jack actually had a fractured tibia, and he actually they just gave him a couple of aspirin, and he played the rest of the season with it. And another one, Walt Garrison, broke his clavicle, and they just taped that thing up, and this was a fullback. So I mean, you have a tendency to use your shoulders playing that position, and he was just banged up a little bit,
So who is your friend that used his cast for
Conrad Doble.
Yeah,
Conrad
Doble.
Yeah.
See, Conrad has the reputation of being a dirty player,
Dirtiest.
And so a guy that I played with in college, Dan Deerdorf, played next to Conrad. And I'd ask, Dan, when you run into each other at reunions, and I said, what's it like playing? He says, oh, he's really a good guy. And I said, where does he get the reputation of being so dirty? I said, oh, he is dirty. But you're amazed at how often, of course, his way of thinking is, but he was using that to get an edge on the other guys, because they would, players would, because he wasn't that great an athlete. He said he played above his ability, but he had so many people that just wanted to.
Scared of him.
Well, either afraid of him or they just wanted to annihilate him, and they stopped thinking, like they should, and doing their jobs, and so that gave him a little bit of an edge.
So, what was your edge?
My edge, I think my edge in college was always speed. I don't think that they expected me to be as fast and as quick as I was, playing the position that I did, and I think that also helped me in the pros. But I think I was a smart player too. I didn't, like a lot of players. They get in there, they play angry, and I think a player that plays angry, has an edge sometimes, just on the sheer fury, that you play the game. But if you're playing, with in an offense or a defense for a school or for a coaching staff, that they have, that it's fairly complicated, that fury is going to detract from your ability to do the job that you're asked to do, because it's often very complicated, especially if you're playing a linebacker position.
I thought offense players were smarter than defensive players. I've heard that comment, and so how could a smart guy be playing linebacker?
Well, the offensive linemen always think that they're smart guys. And the reason is, and I played with some guys with the Cowboys. Blaine Nye was one. He went to Stanford, and these guys, they're always talking about how smart the offensive lineman. Dan Deerdorf did the same thing. That the offensive line were the smartest guys. And I says, well, if you're so smart, how come you guys, can't get any girls, and you can't, and you're sitting down there beating your heads in every play? I mean, we're out there, our uniforms are clean at the end of the game, and look at you, you're like a bunch of mud balls. So anyway, we'd have a lot of fun back and forth in that. But I do think the offensive linemen were smart guys. I think they had to play, because they had to play mistake-free, and to play, defensive linemen could play with controlled rage, if you know what I'm saying. Offensive linemen couldn't do that because they had too much coordination and too many things that they had to remember on where to be and what to do on every single play.
Ed Buddy told me something similar. He said he had an opportunity to play offensive guard or defense. He said he wanted to play offense because you had to be at a certain place at a certain time, and that just seemed simpler to him.
Well,
but that's what he said.
I think he had to. Yeah, he had to. Well,
That's what he
okay.
said.
He had a place to be. That
Well, he knew where to
yeah,
be.
yeah.
He knew, it was
Where did he go to college?
Michigan State.
Oh, there you go.
You knew that. You knew the answer to
I
that.
wanted you to say it.
Well, Mike, tell us a little bit about. You got two new ventures: the Sports Academy in San Diego, and
The A11 Football League.
and the A11 Football League, and both. But we finished it. Another memorable thing about that event, though, was the next morning, I could hardly move. I could hardly walk. I was so sore. So that's my first.
You're right and tied.
That's my
Start.
first ride and tie start. But well, let me just talk a little bit about Mike Keller, and then hopefully he'll
be here.
Hopefully he'll be here. And anyway, so some of you might wonder, who is Mike Keller? Well, Mike came from a little community in Michigan called Grand Rapids. And at the time, Grand Rapids had Grand Rapids in the city. So it's this little, I don't know how big it is now, but it's a small community in the upper part of Michigan. So here's this little kid, big kid, but young kid, going to St. Stephen's Elementary School. And he likes sports. He likes running, he likes baseball, he likes football, he likes basketball, he likes swimming. You name the sport,
I don't need it turned off.
he's doing this. He's doing it. So he just loves these sports.
Good at them.
And he was good at them. That helps, doesn't it? That really helps.
Okay.
Yeah, so part of the reason he liked to be outside and liking sports is this Mike Keller. I'm just starting to talk about this little kid in elementary school. Hi, Mike.
Gentlemen.
It's good to see you.
Frank.
Tony Brickle. I was just starting to introduce you by talking about Grand Rapids, and at the time that you were in Grand Rapids, I'm not sure there were Grand Rapids in the city.
Well, there actually was. There actually was. It's right on the Grand River that flows through the middle of downtown, and so you have the east side and the west side, and there were rapids, and of course they're not as grand as they might have been back then to people.
They're going to create them. They're talking about creating them again.
Recreating the rapids.
Recreating the rapids.
There you go.
I didn't think you were that old.
No, but I like to know who is lugging those rocks around to get rid of the rapids.
Anyway, I'm going to repeat myself so that Mike understands the backdrop. I said, how does this young boy, but he was a big boy, and he liked football as a kid, basketball, baseball, swimming, running fast, all these golf, all these sports. How did this boy from St. Andrews Elementary School become the chief operating officer of this new National Professional Football League that's going to debut in 2014? How did that happen, Mike?
It's a long and winding road. But as with everybody's life, I would say, and you can say, I mean, it's all a matter of influences that you face along the way that mold anybody into a person in a situation and the circumstances that all conspire, I guess. You can call it fate, or you can call it, just the way the road turns. And I can't say that there was any plans, but it occurred.
You were at the right place at the right time, growing up within the right family. Mike is one of 8 kids, right? One of 8 kids. And the theme of these programs are mentally tough, competitive and mentally tough. And you fit that bill. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about where you think that mental toughness in you, when it started. See, I think it started back in elementary school.
Oh, I believe it started even before elementary school, I would think.
Tell the story. Tell your first race.
We've got a few stories.
Tell everybody about his first.
With his mother?
I told.
Well, my mother was a very competitive person, okay, and I think we drew quite a bit of that from her. Although my dad played college football, and you had to have a certain element of. But I always thought of my dad as the easygoing one that kind of kept peace. Kept the water a little bit more serene. My mother was more the one that had everybody paddling fast. And what I remember about my mother and Chris, and I tell this story, in that she worked hard all day to get us ready to for dinner, and every dinner was.
But that's not all she did. She was a professor.
Right. She was always striving. I would say that about Mother. She was always striving. It was never enough. I mean, she dearly wanted to be a housewife and a mother of 8 children. They, after the war, after World War II, both my parents, they just wanted to have big families, and so. But that was never enough for her. I mean, once she'd raised the kids, most of us could survive. She knew we'd survive. Then she went back to school and got her PhD in. God, what did she get it in? Old English literature, and so we're sitting there with a bunch of books about Beowulf, sitting around, and we're talking about Beowulf, and then we'll actually open them up. And if you've ever read Old English, it's a foreign language.
It is.
And we thought she was absolutely out of her mind. But that was something that, and I think as I've analyzed it, it was something that nobody else would take, and so she knew something that nobody else knew because nobody else cared. But that wasn't the point. And so, but she got her PhD, and then she went back and she actually taught. And this is all while, after she'd raised, 8 kids, and she was still playing tennis, and she was still playing golf, and all the other things that I guess, suburban housewives do with the bridge club and the whole works. So it was like there was never enough hours in the day for her to cram whatever she needed to do into it.
So tennis, she was a golfer too, though?
Right.
Okay.
So both your parents were athletic.
We were members of a country club. We weren't wealthy. I mean, with 8 kids, it was hard to be wealthy. But we were able to be. They said we're not taking vacations as a family. Of course, that would have been, traumatic for everybody. We took one back to Washington D.C. and it was never going to happen again, and putting everybody into a station wagon. So we joined a country club where we could all, play golf and swim and participate in activities, and it also freed her up, during the summer months to do what she wanted to do. And if my mother was happy, and we were relatively happy, then my father was happy.
We know how that works.
Right, there are corollaries to all these happiness.
But I wanted you to tell the story of your first race, running race.
Well, yeah, and of course, that's why I say it. I was probably 4 years old, and I wanted to race everybody, and so I challenged my mother to a race, and it was no set distance. I mean, it was just a race, till one of us proclaimed victory, I guess, and but I raced her, and she didn't cut me any slack. She beat me like a drum, and I guess some parents would let the kid win. Well, that wasn't the way it was in our house. So if I was going to win, I had to earn it. And so, and she says, when you get a little faster, come back and we'll do it again.
Is that what you said?
Was her approach to it.
When you get a little faster. I like that, when you get a little faster.
Well, I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, she could have given me an elbow when we were running down the sidewalk, too. But she didn't do that.
Well, she would have prepared you for Bo Schembechler.
Exactly.
You get a little faster. So it's clear that she was very competitive. Very competitive.
She was, and I think she instilled it in us, and she challenged each and every one of us, not just in sports. I mean, because there weren't, of the 8 of us, probably only half of us participated in athletics. But it was also music, and it was obviously schoolwork and academics. So it was whatever we chose to do. Her approach was, do it, but do it well. I mean, work to excel, not just do it.
So Old English is your second language.
That's right. We talk about it. We use it around the dinner table now. Don't get me started on that, because I'll try to make up some words and it won't work.
I tell you. All right. So because this is D-Day, your father.
Well, my father was in the Pacific, but they were all part of that. I was, I thought of him and the fact that he was a veteran and was in, he was at Okinawa and Guadalcanal and so he was part of the island hopping with the Marines. So and he was also a Marine drill sergeant. Which I could never think of my dad as being a drill sergeant, but he was one of the guys that prepared
prepared them in.
Once he'd done his tour, he came back, and of course the war was still going on. It was at that time, 43 and 44. So
well, he reminds me of Tony. Tony, because you're a Mr. Fix-It, and
we had
Mike,
to be.
But in Mike's father.
Yeah, in our family though, but my dad was so good at it. He said, oh, "Okay, let me do that."
Yeah, get out
and
of
so
the way. Well, that's what I do to Frank.
And of course, we were also fairly smart. He said, "Okay, Dad, you know, if you want to do it, you go ahead and fix it." But it didn't prepare us, you know, to do it. Most of us are mechanically challenged, you know, whether it's a car or anything else. And,
Me too.
And my wife would certainly agree to that around the house. But there's people who are professionals at that, and I believe in assisting those professionals.
Tony is an amateur, but he could be you could be a professional.
Well, that's what I did for a living. I fix things.
But is there a day when either Linda or I don't ask you to fix something?
Fix something, yeah. Doesn't matter what it is.
Doesn't matter.
Well, I'm definitely afraid of electricity, so I mean, all I can think of is I'm going to electrocute myself, and I have a few times without even trying.
Yeah.
So, you know, so there are, you know, I just figure there are professionals out there, and in our great society, you know, we want to provide opportunity for all those people.
It's good for the economy.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So we could talk more about childhood stuff, but then we go to high school. And in the high school years, you're still a big kid,
Right.
running fast. How did that happen?
Probably one of the keys to my success, and of course, in jumping ahead a little bit further, that, you know, my college coaches, that was one of the things they marveled at, and they said that they wanted fast people. And that's one of the reasons that Bo Schembechler and his staff liked me more than anything, was that I could run fast. And I think
You owe that to your mother.
And going back to, yeah, she kept beating me, and I kept working harder at it. Well, I think I wanted to be fast as a child. I mean, and I thought of myself as fast. And so when you want to be fast and you think of yourself as fast, I think you become fast. And I wouldn't say that anybody else in our family was. So I have no explanation for it other than.
Well, wait a minute. Let's go back to, why did you think you wanted to be fast as a kid? Why? You're bigger than everybody else. Why did
it was just the challenge of beating the others, other kids. I mean, not beating them up, but just being faster. And races were always, you know, because you did races, and you competed in everything that you did. Whether it was, you know, even in basketball, you know, you try to be the first down the court, and if you got the ball in your hands, that's even better. If you're playing football, you're first to get to a point, whether you're a wide receiver or you're a linebacker. You're always in a hurry. You know, every one of our team games are based on speed, agility, balance, and body control, and those things that help you to win the battles.
So exciting.
Well, let me start with the A11 Football League. The A11 Football League is a spring professional football league. We have assembled what we think is a virtual dream team of people to overcome some of the mistakes that have been made by previous spring professional football teams. Plus, I think that the time is right, where sometimes the previous efforts of the United States Football League and the XFL, even the NFL Europe, or the World League that became NFL Europe, you know, played for 13 or 14 years. So, you know, the concept was not foreign. And I think that the game of football in our country, American football, I always say American football because having worked in Europe with NFL Europe, we said football over there. And of course, we're talking two different sports. So the sport of American football has grown to the point in this country that it is, I believe, the most popular sport. That's backed up by the television ratings that continue to rise, the attendance all across, you know, high school, college, and professional football. That it's a sport that has really become, you know, kind of, you know, identifiable with the psyche of the American public, I believe, or the viewing public. And maybe it's, and there's maybe many reasons for that. Maybe it's the contact or it's the violence, but I think it's also the team sport, and it's also a very, very well produced and delivered television sport, because you've got natural breaks in the action for the commercialization, if you will, and it also allows the commentators to explain what's going on the natural breaks, so that it's an educational process that is very difficult to do with any other sport other than maybe baseball, which, you know, you just got to make sure that people wake up. You know,
well, yeah.
Time for the end of the game. It's nighttime time. But I think that it's a perfect timing, and I think that the market research that we've done, tells us that the timing is right, and we're going to be playing in major cities and first-class big league stadiums. Although we'll downsize the stadiums, we'll tarp the upper decks and that type of thing to make it a 40,000 seat stadium. But we want the people who attend the games, who may be spending $100 a ticket for an NFL, and a family of four is going to cost you $1,000 to go to a game each week. We think the timing is right, to have the game of football, professional football, offered to people, families, and children, and all walks of life that can afford to go and can enjoy major league stadiums and the tailgating and all the fun that goes with it, and the community effort that goes into having a game. So we're excited, because our market research says that it will succeed this time, and we're well funded, and we'll be playing from we'll be starting in April and finishing on July 4th every year. We hope to have our championship game on July 4th to be to kind of besides fireworks,
symbolic,
be the day for our championship game. So,
what do you think that will make this more successful than the previous? As you said, the previous.
I think it's timing. I think it's timing. I think it's the quality of the athletes and the number of the athletes that are available. The fact is that only 150 to 200 each year out of the thousands that come out of college make it in the National Football League. There's a dearth of opportunity, not a dearth of there's a dearth of opportunity for players coming out of college nowadays to be able to make their living at professional football. And so we believe that, and the NFL hasn't got total control over getting all the best players, because 1/3 of all the players in the National Football League were undrafted free agents, which tells you that they missed on them. Okay, we'll build ourselves up. We'll get a lot of those great players and the teams that the NFL miss on. I mean, look at some of the guys. I bring up the name of a guy, Tim Tebow. Was a very, very popular player in college, won the Heisman Trophy, and maybe the most popular athlete in America today. And the National Football League cut him recently and decided that he was just not the kind of player that will be successful in the National Football League. Well, we think he would be tremendously successful for us in the A11. And for every Tim Tebow, there's 50 or 60 others, or 100 or 200 just like him, that are not just like him, but that are terrific athletes that the NFL decides just don't fit their style of play. Well, we think we'll be wide open. The A11 offense has one little wrinkle in it that changes it from the National Football League, and that is that our players we will not have the numbering system that was instituted in 1952.
I was fascinated by that.
So
I never realized that.
We'll have when it was 52. Yeah. Before that, any number went. Well, and so there's not a numbering system by who is eligible to catch a pass. So by formation, which is the same in the NFL, only certain players can. It's a guy in the end of the line of scrimmage, or it's a guy that's uncovered, or somebody that's behind the line of scrimmage can receive a pass. Well, all we got to do, we can drop guys off the line of scrimmage and boom, he's downfield. So it's going to be a challenge for defenses. It's going to be, I call it, for simplicity's sake, a super spread offense that will be pretty exciting for people to watch. And as a former defensive player, the defensive coaches will have to come up with some schemes to try to stop it. So it'll be a challenge, and it'll be very exciting to watch, I think.
Okay.
The Sports Academy has been a long-time dream of mine, and I just got some good news a couple of days ago stating that we're very close to the funding for that.
Oh, terrific.
And the Sports Academy is an elite athlete training center that will be for not only elite athletes or boys and girls, men and women. It's not necessarily for professional players, although they will be accepted in at certain times. They'll come in to do their conditioning in preparation for the season. But our goal with the Sports Academy is to have year-round sports training for up to 14 disciplines with the finest facilities and the finest training and coaches that America has that want to work with young people.
Can you spell out finest?
Pardon me?
Can you spell out what would make it finest?
What would be the finest? Well, we'll have the finest facilities. Where we're going to set it up, we'll have the finest weather. And we're going to work with a selection. I mean, we will take in many, but we will offer scholarships to the best and brightest around the country. And so we will have people that will be evaluating, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball,
High school
rugby.
age or
High school age, but younger students can attend as well during certain times of the year. We're also looking at it as well. We're going to have a private school attached to it, so any students can come and can come in and work out. So we're not saying, well, if you're not good enough, you can't come. Well, but parents and schools and coaches and people from all across the country that want to get first class training, and we're going to be doing it in a lot of other ways too. I mean, it's what is the old Greek saying, and you should know this. And then
Thanks.
A sound mind and a sound body. So
Right.
and we believe that we will not only offer the best in training, but we'll also offer the instructional part of it. Why do you participate in sports? What is it? What is it that benefits it? How are you going to use that to be a good human being, and to accentuate academics? Although other than the students that will be in the private school, obviously they're going to have to be great students as well as great athletes in order to participate.
That's what I was going to. The private school part of it is basically going to be geared toward people that want to go into athletic.
Well, it will, but you're gonna it's gonna be the best and brightest. It's not gonna be the highest jumpers and the quickest runners. I mean, this truly is going to be an elite athlete training center, and that includes academics, and the morality and psychology and all of the what makes up what we hope to be will be. The best and brightest are going to carry, the torch forward in the years to come. And not just on the football or basketball fields, but also, and teaching the same, mantra that we hope will be part of the education process.
So if you're a parent or grandparent and how would you get attached or get referred?
Well, we'll be well advertised, we'll be well promoted. When we get funded and we are in operation, we're going to focus on California first.
Are you?
We've got an introductory process or a sales process with some young college-age kids that we're looking at hiring that will go to every high school and especially in the region. See, initially it's going to be obviously we have to make money, but we're going to start with summer camps. They'll be from mid-May to the beginning of September. And almost every student athlete in California goes to a camp for a 3-day camp in some way, shape, or form, where there's football, basketball, and all the disciplines. And so we will set that up and just fill up we'll have dormitories, with 300 rooms. And we'll pack them in like cordwood, and then use all of our facilities to allow them all going at the same time. And I mean, it's really going to be something to behold when we get up and operating, because it's going to be.
Do you have any idea when?
Well, we've identified. Well, the number one thing is the money.
The money.
And the money looks to be coming, and once that happens, we've identified a couple of land acquisition. And that is in the Southern California. That's in the San Diego area.
That's that good weather you're talking about.
It's the great weather. That's right. Well, we're going to be a 360-day type of program. And you always perform better outdoors. Although we will have indoor facilities as well.
Is there going to be 5 vacation days?
I won't have them.
You won't have them.
Unless we extend the calendar. We got to go to the Roman calendar or something that gives us an extra couple months.
You don't know what it's like then to take a vacation?
Oh, I do. My wife and I, we take mini vacations all the time. In fact, she gets tired of going all the time. Can't we just stay home this weekend?
I don't know if she saw the camera pick up.
I don't want to look that direction in case she's looking in the window.
Pick up the blink.
You fly fish, right? You fly fish.
I've done all those things. Not recently.
You have quarter horses still? I mean.
No, I don't have the quarter horses. I want the quarter horses again, and I want to do the fly fishing and love to travel. And I've done all those things at different times in my life, but not a whole lot of it, recently.
So, do I understand?
I just got back from New York, so I mean, I had a nice trip to New York. But we met with, that was for the league, and we met with a couple of, well, I probably shouldn't name them, I don't want to get myself in hot water, but we met with 2 networks, and now we've got 3 networks that are interested in televising all of our games. So that'll be a major story when it comes out in a few weeks.
It'll be that quick?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
There'll be decisions made.
Wow. Anything else that's needed for the grand opening?
No, I think we've got it all pretty well narrowed down. I mean, it's going to be
214.
The announcement is going to be, well, we're going to be playing showcase games in 2014.
Okay.
And there'll be 4 or 5 games that we'll play in major stadiums across the country. And actually, the networks love the idea. They see that as being a great precursor, you know, and getting everybody enticed, you know, for the 2015, which will be the full bore season.
So is there teams already formed and
In our minds.
players? If there's no players, or
We've got our fantasy league all ready to go.
Will there be some teams in California?
There'll be a San Francisco, a Bay Area team. But we're looking at the New York, New Jersey area, Tampa, Philadelphia, Detroit, Chicago, Dallas, St. Louis, Louisville. We're going to start with 8. Denver's on the horizon, as well as not Southern California, although eventually Arizona or Phoenix and San Diego are in the future.
On the future.
Yeah,
So-
but 8 to begin with.
Well, you were involved with the USFL too. and
I've been involved with all of them.
that didn't last very long. What happened there? I
Well,
mean,
okay, I started out with the NFL, which is still around, so at least I didn't kill that league.
You didn't kill the Big Ten. It's gotten
That's right, the Big
it's
Ten.
gotten
I
bigger.
was on a roll there, and then I don't know, then the wheels started wobbling, and when I got cut by the Cowboys, in fact, the Gil Brandt or Tom Landry, when he was cutting me, he says, Mike, I got some bad news for you. We're going to have to let you go. And of course, my joke is that, well, why, Coach? And he says, well, it's because of illness and fatigue. And I said, I feel great. What illness and fatigue? He says, no, Mike, we're sick and tired of you. But if you go on down the hallway, I think Gil's got some good news for you. So anyway, I went down the hallway, and Gil Brandt said that there's something called the World Football League. In fact, Ron Mix was the general manager of the Portland Storm, and Dick Corey was the head coach. My position coach was Marty Schottenheimer, and so there was, and I went up there, and we had this house, and Ben Davidson, the old Raider, was in the group. So I was a young guy, but boy, I was there with a lot of broken down old NFL players. But it was a lot of. I was there for 3 weeks, and then they ran out of money, and Ron Mix told me, he says, well, I said I'm leaving, and they said they weren't going to pay anymore, because the Cowboys had told me if they ever miss a paycheck, come on back, you got a job. Mm-hmm. And so
okay, they're telling me to wrap it up, so make it.
Okay. Well, anyway, long story short, Ron Mix says, well, we're not going to fly. We're not going to fly. And he says, okay, we'll take it out of my paycheck. And so at least I wasn't stuck for the plane ride home, because the paychecks weren't any good anyway. So.
Well, it's been fun. Too bad we don't have a longer show, but you'll have to come back, Mike.
I'd be happy to, and I'll try to make sure that there aren't any crack-ups on the road driving up, and then certainly not myself not being one of them. But it's been a lot of fun, and of course, Frank, it's great,
well,
having you as a buffer here between us. So
that's one of the reasons Tony's here.
But it's nice meeting you, Tony, and Frank. It's always fun. You make me tell the stories, and they're always fun to reminisce on.
Good. Well, that's the end of our first show, and we welcome you next week for our second show.
We have
Tim Tweetmeyer and
Mark Falcone, who are both Western States runners. Tim, if anyone knows Tim, is quite a Western States runner.
Yeah.
But that's next week.